Well, hello everybody. This is Weirdly Magical with Jen and Lou, and I am Lou.
And I'm Jen.
And I'm an astrologer, and Jen, you are a
Akashic reader and magical card maker.
and I'm a writer too, and so is Jen. We're multifaceted. Oh, so here we are on June the 12th recording this, and tomorrow we have a new moon in Gemini. And Jen and I are going to talk about the energies around that new moon, but also some of the surrounding energies and pretty much energies that we're kind of picking up in the collective. A lot of what's going on right now. So the new moon is at 22 degrees and 44 minutes of Gemini. And in my new moon article, I did point out that there's a lot of kind of goddessy energy in the chart around that degree that I want to look at. So there's Ceres at 24 degrees of Leo, Eris still at 23 degrees of Aries, where she has been for a while. And I will explain what these mean. And Lilith is at 24 degrees of Capricorn. And Vesta is at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, which is quite far in degrees from the new moon. But because Vesta is retrograde, they are kind of coming together. So it's an applying opposition aspect. So I will talk a little bit about that as well. But before I do, Jen, what would you like to say about this new moon and its energy?
I think what strikes me as very interesting is the numbers, the alliteration. We have the 2244 of the sun and moon together, which is pretty incredible. A double two, double four. We are in an 11 year, which is 2018 added up. This month of June is a 17 universal month, which is an 8. The new moon is happening on the 13th, which is a 1 and 3 is a 4, and then we have these 4s, the 2s, and the 8s repeating. 8, we've got 2 and 2 is 4, 1 and 3 is 4, so there's a lot of 2, 4, 8 energy, the 11, the portal, the entering the gateway to change. Since this is a Gemini moon, it is even more interesting because Gemini is the twins. So we have this number and the sun and moon actually twinning each other, right? And creating this energy of expansion or the opportunity to change the polarity or bring it together, because 2 is about creating balance or harmony or bringing 2 sides together, and 22 is double 11, so there's a lot of that aspect of what does it mean to walk through this space, what does it mean to have this opportunity to communicate in a different way, to see things in a different way. Of course, Mercury is about the mind and what are we communicating. We have Mercury there at 2 degrees as well, which has and there's a couple of other planets there, including.
And Mercury's at 2 degrees and 4 minutes as well. So that's.
Oh yes, that's right, in 4 minutes. So it's a huge message of this opportunity to choose something different. It's about changing your mind, basically. You can have all these ideas in your mind, and many of us have very fixed beliefs, and these numbers are giving us the opportunity to choose something different, to know something different, to be enlightened or open up our minds to be someone different or bring something together in a different way. Like, how would you relate if there are 2 parts of you, which there are, the male and female part, and the divine part and the human part? So to me, a lot of this new moon is about grounding a new reality. 2, 4, 4 and 8 are both numbers of taking action, of bringing things into the material world. And what are we going to bring into the material world? It comes through our thoughts, our ideas that we are bringing in and making it real now. So that choice, that gateway that we're choosing, what are we choosing to be a part of? What piece of peace are we going to activate, if any?
And I find it interesting because I keep seeing more 2s and 4s the more I look. Like Ceres says at 24 degrees and 24 minutes. So 2, 4, 2, 4. And then I find it interesting that because, and I mentioned it in my article that you say that I wrote for the new moon, that my favorite all-time quote is, that kind of changed my life, is Wayne Dyer's, "If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." Because Gemini is all about new perception and perception. And I mentioned already the new moon is opposing Vesta in Sagittarius. And Vesta is right at the end of Sagittarius at that last degree at 29 degrees, which is another 11. It's that gateway into the next beginning. But also Vesta is focus and commitment, and to my mind, and the keeper of the flame. And to my mind, I've envisioned it. I feel everything's coming together. So I love the word that the way you said as well about coming into balance, because I think it is about taking all our perceptions, all the things we see, all the scattered kind of energy, because Gemini can be very scattered, and bringing it into focus, and looking at things differently once you bring it all in together. So I see that in it. I also see a kite configuration. Is quite wide, but to my mind, it's working because the new moon is in Gemini and is the focal point of the kite. But the kite goes to Ceres in Leo, and Ceres is the great mother, and she represents themes of forgiveness and loss and grief. And I'm seeing a lot of people talking about that, actually. There's even a viral video going around about forgiving assholes. So I see a lot of these kind of themes coming up where from in the world, and not just on social media, from people I talk to as well, my friends. And then Eris in Aries is also part of this kite configuration. And I will say the kite configuration is a lovely configuration. I have very good feelings about this new moon, to be honest. But she to my mind, is the revealer of artifice. She's kind of revealing a lot of stuff that we thought was true, if you like, and that's quite fake. And we're starting to see behind the white picket fence, if you like. And then finally Vesta, which I've already talked about. She's focus and commitment, and she is retrograde at that last degree of Sagittarius, really kind of reviewing what's true. But even more importantly, she is conjunct the galactic center, the center of the Milky Way, which is this kind of the sun of our sun. And the galactic center is a supermassive black hole that is said to emit powerful rays of new information. And that's going directly into the new moon, because that's at the opposite point. So we're receiving new information that we have not perceived before, to my mind.
Yes, it's actually a very exciting lineup, and the way the numbers are falling out, and where they're placed, and just all of these things you were talking about, this aspect, the female aspect. And for me, I look at Vesta, and it's the keeper of the hearth, right? There's a fire there, and in the last degree of Sagittarius, there's more fire. It's like a flaming arrow reaching in, right, to the moon, and expanding our relationship, because the moon and sun are together in this, and together even more because of the numbers,
Yeah.
expanding our understanding and giving us a new way of looking at things. We're
Mm-hmm.
being, I think in many ways, it's like we're being pierced by these arrows of truth, if you will, or subterfuge.
Mm.
And we have the opportunity to kind of, where are we going to let these arrows land? Because the interesting thing about Gemini and Mercury and this whole pattern of the 11 and the twos, the double twos, the double ones, is our choice. We have a choice. We get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And if we understand that every day we have a choice, no matter what's happening around us, we are choosing things consciously or unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Mercury and this number layout is actually bringing the choices into a deeper consciousness, which can be really painful. A lot of times we don't want to look at the truth. We want
Mm.
to hide behind that facade and go, that's not me, that's someone else, it's not my responsibility, I don't have to take any notice. However, we have players in the world around us that are doing things that we cannot ignore. In
Mm.
fact, people we know are doing things we cannot ignore. And it's not that we need to ignore it. What this energy is about is us finding what is true for us, what is innovative for us, what is something we can understand about what we believe.
And it's what's true about us as well, I would say.
Yes, and that's
Mm.
interesting because this day is actually a 21 universal day, which
Mm.
is this 21 is the number of truth. And it's the thing. Our truth will set us free. I don't believe other people's truth will set us free
Oh
because
no.
we don't care about other people's truth. But our truth, being pierced by the knowledge that what I'm choosing, because again, here we have the choice. That's what two is about. What side what am I going to fall on? What side am I going to fall
Mm.
on? Who am I going to follow? Who am I going to trust? It's your internal relationship with the divine, with the earth, the thing you're creating in integrity. Because again, choice comes down to integrity. What's integrous for you in the choice you're making? This new insight, this idea that
Mm.
you have two options. Which one are you going to take? The 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 road of deceit, or
Mm.
oh fluffy, oh it's wonderful, nothing bad's happening, everything's good,
Mm.
or the road of I can see what's happening, but I choose to be joyful. I choose to approach it with joy because I'm alive. I'm here. I can
Mm.
do this. I can bring the divine into my body. I can make something. I can change things.
But I think and I agree with all of that, absolutely. But I think my point about what's true about me or you
Yeah.
is also kind of, and I'm perhaps deeply involved in this at the moment because the working title of the book I've been hired to write is The Astrology of Personal Development. And
Mm.
it got my curious Gemini mind thinking about personal development and how a lot of it is about becoming almost something that you're truly not, and about being wrong, and so to my mind there's a lot of piercing in this about looking within, and it doesn't mean settling and not trying to be the best you, but it does mean getting to know yourself well and not trying to be somebody else. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
think the idea of being threatened. And what comes
Mm.
to mind is I had this exchange with somebody. I wrote a post about my opinion about suicide, and
Mm.
somebody had come along and had a different experience and had said my post was triggering and it was nice words but very fluffy. Um, and you know, she's entitled to her opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
totally fine. Uh, and the part for me was recognizing that I still stood by my opinion, even though
Mm.
she was saying something different. I could still hold the space. I could be compassionate about her opinion and her desire to believe something different. But I
Mm.
wasn't giving in or saying, oh, I didn't even question my own decision. I kind of went in and checked, do I still believe this based on what I'm being shown?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And think this is the key to this, is when you know what's true for you, and it doesn't mean you can't adjust it when you hear something different,
Mm.
but that you're coming from that place. That's the most sacred and the most grounded place to come from,
Hmm.
is though I'm speaking for my truth, so I don't have to threaten someone. I don't have to bully them into agreeing with me, because I'm not giving my truth because I need agreement.
Yeah, and you also don't need to, in addition to that, you also don't need to kind of turn in on yourself and make yourself wrong and get all kind of upset. I don't know why one thing popped to mind immediately, but one of the things that has triggered me all my life is something my dad used to say, and that has been said to me by other people in my life, is that I'm lazy. And well, I'm actually not lazy. I do a shit ton of stuff, but I need downtime. I need downtime to just go and just do nothing too, or I cannot survive in the world. And because I'm not doing things on other people's timetable, that's seen as lazy. So I think my point with this is as well that it's kind of this piercing of truth, is that you are who you are. You're not necessarily lazy just because other people say you're lazy, or whatever, because other people say you are. Yeah.
Yes, I think that sense of betrayal, like
Yeah.
most of these issues we have are because we betrayed ourselves. We
Hmm.
agreed with the collective because we wanted to go along and keep the peace and all of those things. However, it hasn't been peaceful for us. It's been,
Mm.
and that continual betrayal has meant we lost the sense of who we are. So
Yeah.
most people, they're still floundering around trying to figure out, who am I? Oh, which person is going to save me? How am I going to get out of this?
Hmm.
Because I've been following other people. We were trained to follow orders for thousands of years. Now suddenly it's like, oh, I have to make up my own mind. How does this work?
Yes.
Who I am if I don't have these, you know, community touchstones that I can go, oh, that's what is, that's what is. We don't have any of this because we don't know what's real, what isn't. And so
Mm.
the only way we can find that out is to express who we are and kind of move to the center, because by expressing what we feel, we get feedback. We get somebody else saying something to us, and then we get to decide, hmm, is this something I believe? Was this
Mm.
something that resonates, or is this something that repels me? And we moving closer or further to certain things until we get to that place where, like, oh, I've had all these people that I've followed and people that I've understood are not for me. And now I've found a place that is for me. This is where I
Hmm.
am, because no one is going to have the identical opinion as you about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you said make up your own mind. That could be another phrase for this new moon, actually. As well as changing the way you look at things, the things you look
Yes,
at change. Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
a phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. So overall for this new moon, I think journaling would be a fabulous activity for this new moon, particularly for because it's a Gemini new moon, and that's to do with communication of all kinds. If nobody's heard of the morning pages, if you're struggling, because there's an anxious energy to this new moon as well that I'm going to talk about a little bit more in a minute, because Gemini, I do find that the air signs can be associated with this mental angst or anxiety. So if you're kind of struggling with that a little bit, morning pages is an exercise that was created by the author of The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, and it's writing 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness writing first thing in the morning. It's really one of the most fabulous tools I know for kind of getting your head straight. and and so if you're feeling like this kind of anxious energy, it would be a really great tool to start using for this lunar cycle. So perhaps set intention to do something like that. Do you have any recommendations as well for this new moon?
Yes, I do. I think the morning pages is great, but I think this certainly engaging the mind, because right now we have activation not only from Mercury and this idea of all this change that is happening, new ideas,
Mm.
an opportunity to restructure beliefs. You know, there's also that activation with Uranus, which is, you know, the higher level of this,
Mm.
getting these insights or lightning strikes about what what we've been focused on that is different. So this really is about making things real.
Mm.
So I think a lot of activity or exercise, walking,
Oh.
something physical, even creating something with your hands. I know we talked about last time, you know, that kind of clay thing. You talked about sculpture. I do
Mm.
think getting your hands dirty, digging in the garden, doing
Mm.
activities that help to expand your mind. Because sometimes when you're thinking, and I love the morning pages, so I think that's a great tool. But
Mm.
sometimes when you're thinking or you're looking at information, you're trying to figure it out with your mind, and
Mm.
mind is limited. The existence of what is, it's like a steel trap. Whatever's inside there is kind of just stuck, and it goes round and round, and you're putting in new things going, how does this fit in an existing trap? And
Mm.
what's happening now is we're being pierced with new information. So we want to be able to receive the revelations by doing something that
Mm.
distracts our normal mind patterns.
I think I would recommend both actually, because the morning pages is not designed to be thought at all. It is designed to just be almost channeled subconscious information first thing in the morning that is stuck in your head. So I think doing Jen's recommendation and the morning pages would be a fabulous combination actually to
Yes, I
reduce the anxiety. Yeah,
totally. I think both of them work well together. It's a great
yeah.
combination.
And
Uh,
to talk about the anxious energy a little bit more, Jen mentioned it already. Mercury is aspecting Uranus in Taurus and Chiron in Aries, and those three all have kind of this anxious energy a little bit as well. They're because Chiron especially is in Aries, and Uranus is the higher mind, while Mercury is our kind of conscious mind. Um, so our minds are really working overdrive because Chiron has this energy of being a bridge between the outer and the inner, the transpersonal and the personal as well. So we're trying to make all these connections. There's so much swirling around. And to add to this kind of anxious kind of energy is the ruler of Aries, Mars, is in the sign that Uranus rules, Aquarius, and is stationing to go retrograde on June the 27th, I believe, and it's conjunct the South Node. And mentioning that the topic of suicide, I personally feel that there's a rise in it again suddenly, and there's been at least 3 public suicides. Uh, is a lot to do with this Mars South Node conjunction. It's very angsty for those that are affected by it. I'm not saying everybody's going to feel this way, but some people are affected by it more in their personal charts. But it does have that kind of energy of frustration and and angst is a really good word.
mm,
So if you're feeling that, it's even more important that you do the exercises.
yes, and then again, it brings us to that same idea of here you have this opportunity to change your mind,
Mm-hmm.
which is such a huge aspect. And of course, when you are feeling agitated, it is hard to ground and make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So, something to do is to not be so impulsive. Like, if you have an idea, you want to do something, give yourself a little time, put it on the side. Don't be
Mm.
in a hurry to do it. Um, you know, it's the aspect of suicide, of course, when one is pushed, there's so much confusion around the idea of suicide. And a lot of it is, for me, is about this idea we've been, not that I'm advocating for suicide or against it. People, I believe in free choice.
Mm.
Will. It's like, even though we may not know we are activating free will, we are every minute. Every minute we make a choice, we're saying yes
Mm.
to something, no to something else. And none of this actually has the meanings we attach. We attach that's good, that's bad.
Mm.
These are just choices. We naming them as good as bad or bad because that's what society has told us.
Mm-hmm.
And society has told us suicide is terrible because the soul will go to hell and all of this kind of
Mm.
stuff. I do think the people that are choosing to commit suicide are obviously in pain, but in the bigger picture, and horrible for the people around them, but the bigger picture is their souls have their own journey.
Yeah. And I don't know much about Kate Spade, but I truly have this strong feeling that Anthony Bourdain chose out. He was like, I'm kind of done.
And I think I believe in euthanasia. It's just like, if we had
Yeah.
the opportunity for some people who weren't ready to go, then we don't have that. Like, it's considered, I know it's available in certain places, but again, it's considered one of those things like taboo. We're not supposed to
Mm-hmm.
do that. But when the soul is ready to go, the soul will go. And if the soul's not ready, it won't. Sometimes you hear people who say, I was going to die, or,
Mm.
happened and it didn't.
Or I
And
should have died then.
yes,
I've heard that.
this is the thing, is to remember, I mean, I don't know much about Anthony Bourdain or Kate Spade besides their work, right? Their
Mm.
body of work. But I did see some pictures of Anthony Bourdain, and I thought, his eyes looked really sad to me. In every picture, I
Mm.
could feel this extreme pain. Here's a soul that's been in extreme pain all his life.
He felt things very deeply. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. Yeah.
So there was
Mm.
a lot of pain, and I could associate that pain. I was like, wow, that reminds me of the pain I used to feel before I did my. Not that I'm saying he didn't do his work or he should have done something different. I'm
Mm.
certainly not saying anything like that. But I'm just saying it's the recognition. Before I moved in 2011, when I was in such a bad way that I had to make a change or leave, and I chose to stay, um, I suffered greatly from, I was a very
Mm.
upset person. So it's 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 an interesting thing to know. For me, it's been my experience that through my own choice, I have changed the way I think
Mm.
about myself and my life.
But there's nothing wrong with either choice, is what,
There's
as
no
well.
judgment at
Yeah.
all. It's totally okay. And I think we have to get away from that stigma of blaming the person. Oh, I
Oh,
understand the left behind, it's devastating, but we have to be able to support those people in a way that they can move on with their lives and not feel guilty.
absolutely. I agree. Yeah. You can feel sad, but you don't have to do the blame thing. And
You take it
no.
in, when you're small children and you don't have somebody helping you, and you can take that in as, I did something wrong. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, even adults do this. I did something wrong because my beloved chose to leave. The two are not synonymous. And that's
Mm.
the recognition, is that somebody chooses to leave, or they're in such pain they can't talk about it. What are you choosing to take with from
Mm.
this experience? uh, and of course, people who've been in that experience do need to go and get help and all of that. um, but the bigger picture, what we're talking about in the bigger picture, is when we do have well-known people that have created such richness in the world for us
Mm.
all, who do commit suicide, they're reminding us that we have to talk about these subjects. We have
Yeah.
to
I,
expose the lies and the rigidity around this. And there's so many different aspects and lies that we're buying into so we can feel safe.
mm.
This moon is about separating the, what do they call it, the wheat from the chaff. that idea of what's mine to honor and to enforce. Like we can't deal with every problem in the world. There's so many things going on.
Oh my
It's
goodness, yeah.
right. It's mind-boggling.
And
But
that actually bring a lot of my friends use the tool of access consciousness. I know a lot of facilitators, and that just reminds me of one of their questions. I find some of the access consciousness questions very useful. Some
yeah,
I don't, and it's just, is that mine or is this mine? And if not, return it to sender with consciousness. All this stuff that's coming at you all the time,
mm,
is this mine? Yeah.
yes, that's a brilliant, and using some of these tools right now, spiritual tools, make sure you go with somebody you trust that is
Mm.
recommended. But there's so many different spiritual tools, even like what you and I do, having
Oh goodness, yeah.
a energy reading, having an Akashic reading, these kinds of things, can really change your perspective.
They can.
Give you an opening, open that door. We're talking about the portal, walking through the portal. You don't need to go through blindfolded. You can help yourself. There's no rules saying you're not allowed to get help. I know there's a lot of people that say divination tools and healing tools is all rubbish and doesn't work. Well, if it feels like it resonates for you, then
Yes,
follow your own path. Don't be listening to someone else who has a different point of view. They have a different perspective of life. They
exactly.
may be afraid or they may not be interested. Don't follow them because they're doing it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, definitely research or choose carefully, as Jen said, choose carefully who you trust to do that work with. But at a self-help level, just some of those simple tools help as well. So that's for sure. And one other thing I did want to talk about a little bit, and it is still related to the chart of the new moon, but it's also an ongoing thing, and it kind of builds on this feeling of anxiety that will be affecting some people because of the energy of this chart. Is that we also have a water grand trine in the chart. And it's connecting the ongoing Jupiter-Neptune trine that we've had two exact of, and we've got one more to come this year. And it's also connecting in Pallas Athena in Cancer. And now this is a lovely healing water grand trine in some ways, but it's also deeply emotional. And Neptune in Pisces brings both kind of an uplift in faith and belief and kind of new spiritual awarenesses, but it can also bring some kind of delusion, illusion, almost insanity. And Jupiter in Scorpio is digging deep, especially because he's retrograde and he's slowing down as well. He will be turning direct a degree from now on July the 10th. And so this is bringing up some very deep emotions on this new moon, and that is both a good thing and a bad thing. But I use those words for the lack of of anything else to describe it. But it is actually, and I'm seeing a lot of it, and I was talking to Jen before we went live, I'm seeing a lot of people who they're kind of buying into some of these conspiracy theories and things that they would have done maybe 2 years ago when I perhaps became friends with them. And I'm not saying they're right and I'm wrong, or they're wrong and I'm right, because who knows what's true, because there is so much craziness and theories and smoke and mirrors about, and that's all that energy of Neptune in Pisces. So it can feel like some people are really kind of losing their heads at the moment. But who knows? It could be us that's losing our heads.
Well, yes, and I think part of it is so interesting. I always think about that what is it, Peter Pan or something, with a guy who lost his marbles, right?
Mm.
And the idea is that we have to lose our marbles, like we have to
Mm.
lose our minds in order to gain the deeper aspect of who we are. Because, like I was talking about, the mind is a steel trap that often tricks us into
Mm.
being very rigid. And we're going into a time where we have to break those walls so we can have a different experience, or we're just going to have more of the same. So, this anxiety, this um, emotional watershed that's coming towards us with such intensity, we're being, it's like we're drowning in all of this stuff,
Mm.
is to remember that everything will be okay if you don't start panicking. Because when you panic, you actually lose your breath and drown, and then you might land up in the wrong place. So instead, let yourself drift into this space and be okay with the idea that there's many ideas, there's many choices,
Mhm.
because the idea is you want to get more connected to your center, to your intuition, to your connection,
Mm.
what is true for you. And the only way you can do it is kind of swim through this, all the muck and the beauty. You're not going to be able to do it from the side of the river and go, oh, I can tell who I am from looking.
Oh, for sure. But I do want to say water energy is very introverted generally too. So I want to say it's okay to escape from it all now and again as well.
Yes, you can pull yourself onto the bank and have a quiet time. This is the
Yeah.
point, is you're in charge of your journey. You don't have to swim along with everyone else. When you get
Mhm.
tired, or you think, wow, these people are not who I want to be with, or all of them are crazy, you can move yourself out of it. You don't have to have a big argument with them and tell them they're wrong. You
No.
just
Just
start.
remove yourself and go and
Exactly.
recharge.
Exactly, and choose a different group. This is the point, to start paying attention to how it impacts you. What makes you anxious? Is what's the anxiety coming from? Because maybe here's a time to use morning pages, which you can use at a different time of the day if you want to, or
Mhm.
maybe you want to sit and meditate, or just go into the yard and sit under the sun, or take a walk, where you're shifting your ability to receive information, because it's just
Mm.
you and the divine or source communicating, you and the earth, right? You're building up a much better relationship with your duality, as opposed to the duality of the world, in terms of,
Mm.
we're seeing a lot of extremes right now, and this is part of how we're going to um, become balanced, or create
Yeah.
harmony, right?
Mhm.
We go from the polarization or the absolute extreme, or the pendulum swinging to the absolute far right or whatever. So it starts, once it hits that point, it's going to start coming back. So you have to
Mm.
remember all of these things so you don't go crazy.
Yeah, and that's for sure. And that's what we're here to remind you. So I kind of point out that you may feel like people in the world are going mad, or even that you're losing your head a little bit at the time, but it's okay.
Yes, it's
Use
okay.
the
It's totally.
tool. Yeah.
And like you said, reach out if you want to talk about it. Put your
Yeah.
opinions out there. Just remember, if somebody comes and tells you you're wrong, just send them off with compassion or forgiveness or love. Forgive the assholes. That's a great expression to use. Like, those people are coming to bug you. The reason they're bugging you is because they want to test how much you believe in what you're saying.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And forgiving the assholes doesn't mean that you have to be with them. Your forgiveness is for you. It's so that you
Exactly.
can release them. So
Exactly. You're letting them go, because as long as they're bugging you, or they're in your area, or they have some kind of connection in you, they're kind of pulling the strings. And when you let them go, when you forgive them, they have no, you don't even care about them anymore.
exactly, no power over you anymore, or you're
Exactly.
not giving them your power anymore.
Exactly. And I think this moon is about self-empowerment. It's like bringing together your two sides, your light and dark, your male and female, your willingness to be kind to others as well as being kind to yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I don't know if I've got any more to talk about. It's we don't like to make these too long because we know your time is precious. But Jen, before we kind of move on, do you have anything else to talk about, or do you want to tell everybody how your cards are spreading in the world?
I think I've said enough. I don't think there's anything else to say except just trust your own voice among, wherever you are, check in before you worry about needing to defend yourself.
Yeah. And if you want to find Jen on Facebook, she's under a Facebook page called Illuminate 8. So it's Illuminate the word and 8 the number. And I have a Facebook page called Louise Eddington Astrologer. Eddington with 1D. So, if you're not already following us on Facebook, we'd love it if you do. And we'd love it if you subscribe to this podcast in all the places where you can get podcasts. I think it goes out to SoundCloud and iTunes and all those places, so that you don't miss any more episodes.
And you can also find us on our websites. So
yes.
What's your website?
louiseeddington.com or yourcosmicblueprint.com.
And mine is jenduchenne.com, and my illuminating journey cards are on my website, jenduchenne.com/illuminating journey cards, if you want to check them out.
Awesome. And so we'll be back with another episode of this podcast just before the next full moon, which I have to say it before I go. I feel like I've got so many major aspects going on in my chart at the moment that it's like, oh my goodness. But the next full moon is conjunct my Saturn in Capricorn, right in the middle of my second Saturn return. So the full moon is conjunct Saturn. So we'll be back to talk about that if I'm still here.
Feeling you'll still be here.
I will. I'm joking. All right, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.